What is going to happen to Zoro after Luffy becomes Pirate King? Roronoa Zoro is the favorite Straw Hat for tons of One Piece fans, and we just can't wait to see him achieve his one goal of becoming the world's strongest swordsman. But what exactly waits for Zoro after he actually finally defeats 𝙲𝚎𝚐𝚐𝚑𝚝? After the One Piece is found and the world government is taken down, what is left for our favorite pirate crew? While the manga will eventually end, we readers want to imagine the world and the characters in it living on beyond that final page. Will Oda give us an epilogue that gives us a happily ever after for each of our Straw Hat Pirates? Or will there be some sort of bittersweet twist? Well, that's what we want to talk about today, for one Straw Hat in particular. For some Straw Hats, it'll be very easy to imagine what they'll do in the future. There will always be hungry people, and Sanji will always want to cook for them, most likely with tasty fish from the All Blue. Frankie will never want to stop tinkering with his machines and building bigger and better ships, even after the Thousand Sunny completes its voyage around the world. And with his immortality, Soul King Brook will probably give Keith Richards a run for his money when it comes to rockstar longevity. But today, we want to focus on Roronoa Zoro. Zoro's goal is to become the strongest swordsman in the world, yada yada, but by the end of the series, it's extremely likely that Zoro will achieve that goal by facing down his mentor, 𝙲𝚎𝚐𝚐𝚑𝚝, once and for all. Unlike some of the other Straw Hat dreams, he has a singular goal, and when that goal is done, it's done. By defeating Mihawk, he will definitely become the strongest swordsman. His life goal will be completed, so what exactly comes next for him? In general, Zoro's entire existence is characterized by his pursuit of strength. He's constantly lifting giant weights and practices his swordsmanship. He's always surpassing his limits by cutting down stronger and stronger opponents. And he really started from almost nothing, getting completely washed by Mihawk in the beginning. But eventually, in his duel with his bones, Zoro learns how to cut steel, possibly tapping into Haki long before we ever actually learned about it properly in the story. And now he's tapped even into Conqueror's Haki. In Wano, he has managed to match the strength of the legendary Kozuki Oden by cutting Kaido's nearly invincible scales, as well as learning Kinemon's technique for cutting through flames. And now it's looking like he'll have to fight an opponent he can't even see, as the Straw Hat Pirates are gonna face off against the Blackbeard Pirates, and he'll most likely fight Shiryu of the Rain, someone who can turn invisible. And who knows, if this popular theory is correct as well, he may even fight against someone who inherits Josu's fruit, learning to cut the hardest substance in the world, diamonds. What does someone who pursues strength so single-mindedly do after he finally has become the world's strongest swordsman? What else does Zoro have to strive for? Oh yeah, and speaking of striving for a big goal though, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It's free, and we're also aiming for 1 million subscribers. There we go. But now, back to Zoro. Thankfully, when it comes to predicting what Zoro might do in the future, we're not working totally blind here. Oda-sensei has actually given us a few hints to work with about what the future might look like for each of the Straw Hats. In the SBS section of the manga volumes, he's actually provided some illustrations of what various Straw Hats would look like at the ages 40 or 60. And he generously gave us both a good timeline and a bad timeline. If you haven't checked out any of these drawings in the recent SBSs, definitely go take a second to look at them right now. They're awesome. For the good timeline, Zoro ages very gracefully. Really, he hardly looks to have aged at all, save for a few wrinkles here and there. With a nice comedic touch, Zoro at age 40 declares that he has mastered the 4-sword style, and at age 60, he's even upgraded to 5 swords. Now, I'm not even sure I want to know how he's holding that 4th and 5th sword, but feel free to let me know if you have any guesses. This goes to show, though, that Zoro's pursuit of strength doesn't have to end just because he's the strongest swordsman in the world. Even if he overcomes Mihawk and stands above any other challenger, there's still one important opponent that he'll have left: himself. I mean, Zoro can always continue lifting his oversized weights and surpassing his own limits. He'll likely maintain his disciplined training rather than resting on his laurels. After all, he's already achieved so much in the story, and that hasn't changed his razor-sharp focus on improving himself at all so far. Now, as we've mentioned earlier, earlier, he has already learned to cut steel, but that's only really the beginning of what Zoro has accomplished. He has helped a lot to hold his crew together in the toughest moments, such as when Usopp left the Straw Hat crew during Water 7. He's defeated countless formidable foes like the legendary warrior from Wano, Ryuma, gaming the fabled sword 𝙻𝚎𝚐𝚐𝚐𝚐, and also in Thriller Bark, who could forget him taking on all of Luffy's pain in order to save the rest of the crew, and in a truly iconic moment, professing that nothing happened. And recently in Wano, like we mentioned, he's managed not only to scar Kaido, a feat formerly only accomplished by Oden, but also to temporarily block a dual attack from Kaido and Big Mom. He also, of course, tamed Oden's sword Enma, and evidently even fought back the Grim Reaper himself. And as we enter the final saga, Zoro shows no signs of slowing down in the slightest. Just like Mihawk, he may live a quiet and reserved life, though with barrels of sake, I guess, instead of wine. He'll keep training constantly, waiting and searching for the time that a worthy opponent may arise, wanting to take the mantle of world's greatest swordsman for themselves, kind of becoming the mentor of someone else. However, on the opposite end of things, we have the terrifyingly bad timeline for Zoro. Tragically, somehow he loses his hair along with several teeth, and definitely has stopped working out. At age 40, he's long given up swordsmanship, claiming that holding that katana with my mouth makes my back hurt. If I were to guess, I'd say this is probably how he lost those teeth as well, if we're being honest, and it's kind of a miracle he hasn't so far. At age 60, things are even worse. In this timeline, he's become a beggar, claiming that he'll bow down to anyone who'll give him some spare change. Oh boy. We can really only guess what terrible events could have convinced Zoro to drop his swordsmanship, along with his convictions and most importantly, his honor. The Zoro we know would never bow to anyone. After all, he's a conqueror, just like his captain. And while Oda's drawings give us hints as to what Zoro might do after the story, it doesn't tell us at all where he'll be doing it. Where could Zoro possibly go after Luffy becomes the Pirate King and the Thousand Sunny stops its voyage? Well, there are a few options. After Zoro dethrones Mihawk, perhaps he'll eventually take over as the steward of Kurigana Island after Shichibukai passes on. I mean, someone has to keep all those apes company after all. However, occupying Mihawk's home chateau seems more up Perona's alley, if we're being honest, and something tells me Zoro would rather not spend any extra time with her. After all, he's not that keen on that Tim Burton goth aesthetic. If any of the Straw Hats were to look for a home there, it would probably be Brook, if we're being honest. I could also see Zoro ending up on Sabaody Archipelago, taking over Silvers Rayleigh's job. Zoro is the first mate to the future Pirate King, so maybe it would be fitting for him to follow in the footsteps of his predecessor, the first mate of Gold D. Roger. Zoro too could keep an eye out for the up-and-coming rookies making their way into the new world, and perhaps even giving them a test of strength before they descend into the second half of the Grand Line, given that the Grand Line and the One Piece world as a whole as it exists right now is even still a thing at that point, of course. Another option could be a return to Wano, even though we're just about to leave it. After all, it's become clear that Zoro is a Shumotsuki, and even the possible heir to a daimyo position. Zoro's way around katana and the way that he seems to magically attract Wano blades like the Kitetsus, the Wado Ichimonji, 𝙻𝚎𝚐𝚐𝚐, and now Enma seem to suggest a natural attraction to his homelands. I'm sure certain shippers in the community would not be disappointed to see him end up with Hiyori either, given some of the chemistry in the Wano arc. That's some chemistry. Besides, where better to find tough opponents to spar with than among the samurai of Wano. Perhaps though, Zoro will travel all the way back to the East Blue to his home in Shimotsuke village. After becoming the greatest swordsman, he'll visit Kuina's grave to show her that he achieved their goal. After all, he did it in part to carry on her legacy as well. I mean, one truly touching scene that I could imagine would be him teaching young pupils at the dojo where he learned swordsmanship, igniting the same spark in them to become the strongest that was lit in him as a child. And since we already suggested that Zoro could end up with Hiyori, while we're shipping, we might as well wonder if he might become closer to Tashigi as well. Obviously, their relationship has been pretty strained, with him comparing her to Kuina, and her being a marine and trying to capture his crew and all, but they both sure do love a good sword, so that's something that they do have in common. Or maybe Zoro will never settle down at all. Something tells me that Luffy will always be up for an adventure if he's still alive, and he'll probably need his most reliable crewmate at his side at all times. And if you really want to understand why Zoro is so loyal to Luffy and how their relationship has developed throughout the story, you simply can't miss out on that video right here.